Hi. It's really hard to follow Nancy. She has a lot of fun videos, and it was a great presentation and very bleeding edge. The only story that I have is that I have a niece. I have no kids, and my niece said her first word last week, and her first word was Google. And it's because her 4-year-old older brother is always talking to the Google machine, telling it to play, I want to move it, move it. And so Mom, my sister, is very upset that it wasn't Mommy or Daddy or anything else, but it was Google. So, the next generation. By way of introduction, I'm here to talk about Oracle Cloud. And they have asked me to kind of condense because we need to get to the tour on time. And the good news is you've heard quite a bit about Oracle Cloud to date. Al asked me to cover 3 things. He asked me to introduce myself because I think some context of where I come from is probably valuable. The second thing he asked me to do is talk about Oracle Cloud in depth. And the idea would be that if you left the room today, you would be able to give the 101 pitch in an elevator. And then the last thing, which is probably the most interesting to the folks in this room, is to discuss our partner strategy as it relates to cloud and specific to VAD. Okay? So those are the 3 kind of groups that we're going to go through, and I'm going to go very quickly through the Kimberly part. But I joined Oracle about 90 days ago. Previous to this, I was at a company called Chef. Chef is a DevOps company. You might know Puppet or Ansible. We're all kind of in that space. And I worked very closely with AWS and Azure. In fact, that's a picture of me with the head of Azure Tools and the lead evangelist with AWS. That's also Alibaba and my lead engineer, and we are looking at the Alibaba in China supply chain. So that's how they deliver packages, is on the back of a scooter, but yet they're incredibly effective. Prior to that, I was a partner, and that's one of my favorite parts about this, is that I spent 10 years at Accenture delivering system implementation projects. And so I really do have a passion for our partners, and specifically for building businesses around large technology companies. So I thought what I would do is just share why I came to Oracle. Because a lot of people ask that. I live in Seattle, the cloudy city. So you've got AWS, Oracle, and GCP, and who'd I miss? Azure, right? I spent 8 years at Microsoft too, so I have a lot of friends in the room. I actually was responsible for Europe, Middle East, and Africa channel, and so there's several of the VADs in the room that I actually worked with in that capacity as well. But the bottom line is, I love technology, and it's early days of cloud. And when I talk about technology, I'm not going to go through these because we have heard a ton about them today, but the fact of the matter is they all surround digital transformation. I also believe it's cloud early days. And how many people think Amazon's going to take over the world? I do. And sometimes I worry about it because I live in Seattle and I see how pervasive it is and how easy it is. You can imagine now being at a competitive company. I don't want to be ordering all my groceries from Amazon. But yet, when I want a Kit Kat bar and I can get it 15 minutes later for $1 extra, it's pretty tempting not to use their technology. And so I do think where Amazon is clearly the forerunner and was early in, if we look at the data, and I believe this is from IDC, they're saying it's going to be $1 trillion. It's going to triple, especially in some of the larger regions, over the next 3 years. And so you have to fundamentally believe that we're in the early days of cloud to really believe in what we're going to talk about next. And I personally do. Second thing is, I'm a passion for partner. I grew up partner. I explained some of that. But I want to ask the survey, we can put it in the things as well. Technology is moving fast. It is moving so fast because of all of those technologies that I showed. Internet of Things, cloud, and the velocity is incredible. We've talked so much about how speed is a differentiator. Due to the technologies like cloud, Internet of Things, AI, the worldwide productivity growth rate since 2007 has Pascal, do I just click next? Do I click next to show the chart? Pascal, are we going to go old school? It will. There it is. Okay. Oh. Right, everybody in? Okay, most of you think it's grown 200. Some of you think it's grown 10x. Productivity, everybody understands what that is, right? If we take our labor force and we see how much we have produced, is that growth rate increasing or decreasing from 4 years ago? And the answer is it's decreasing. And that makes no sense, right? We have all of these emerging technologies. How in the heck could this stuff be decreasing our productivity as a world? And the answer is complexity, right? We are living in one of the most complex times when they talk about the steam engine, when they talk about all that. The complexity of technology right now is pervasive. And I love that because complexity equals partner opportunity. And that's what we're going to talk about today, and I truly believe that's one of the main reasons that I came to Oracle, is I believe that Oracle's cloud simplifies things for the customer. Okay? Last reason, it's the data smarty pants. We heard all about this. Everything that we're doing is about data. And 3 things happened within 2 months for me. One, I went to Ignite, help me with the other one, they're all eyes. Inspire, which are Microsoft's tech companies, because at Chef I worked with all of them very deeply. I went to reInvent 4 years in a row. I went to Discover at HPE. And what was interesting is when I went to reInvent this year, I was, as a vendor, you're completely scared that they're going to announce that they have created a technology that has put you out of business, number one. But number 2, the word data kept coming up. And if I go back 3 years, that word was security. Everything was about security. And then it moved to lift and shift, right? We're going to help you with that, moving our customers to the cloud. And then it was compliance, right? GDPR, all of the complexity is starting to come in. You could almost track it to the hype curve, right? That all of the different analysts go out and produce. But this year, it was about data. And that's because, as Han presented earlier, at the end of the day, it's the data stupid. If some of you know the US president who said it's the economy stupid, my mom wouldn't let me say stupid, so I now use it's the data smarty pants. And this is fundamental, because if you believe it's the data and you believe in the complexity that we're living in right now, there's 3 things that really matter: innovation, security, and automation. Because automation is just simplification, right? It's allowing you to focus on the higher items. So, Oracle Cloud, that's the context of why I'm at Oracle, and hopefully that'll kind of go through the lines. I think this is a hazing because I think half of these slides were in other presentations, and at 90 days they must want you to get in front of an audience and give the cloud pitch. But Brian talked. It's moving here. There we go. Brian talked a lot about this, and I really do believe when I first came in to this role, I thought, okay, the fact that they're calling infrastructure as a service is ridiculous, and that's completely old school, and they don't understand cloud, right? Because when we talk about Azure, we just call it cloud. When we talk about AWS, we just call it cloud. But the reason they do that is because they fundamentally have 3 different layers. And you could argue Microsoft has that with Office 365, but at the end of the day, Office 365 is about provisioning in a very simple productivity suite, as is Gmail, to provision on servers. When you start talking about the complexity of applications at the enterprise level, no other cloud is doing SaaS for ERP, supply chain management, and so forth. And then, when you add the platform, which is the part I'm actually most excited about, the part I understood the least, it's pretty powerful. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then, of course, there's the infrastructure. And I want to be really clear on something on our strategy. When I was in the interview process, I said, how are we going to compete with AWS? How are we going to compete with Azure? I mean, Microsoft has an amazing partner ecosystem. Oracle has typically been direct. And the answer was, we don't need to. And here's why. There's a couple of things here. One, we're not a commodity play. Where we may have the cheapest and the most effective cloud, that is not our go-to-market strategy. Our go-to-market strategy is large projects, okay? Satya was asked, if you could own any other tech company in the world, who would you want to own? You know what his answer was? Everybody thought it was going to be Google. Analytics, the search engine is amazing. They're 5 years ahead of the rest of the folks. And it was Oracle. And he said, because Oracle owns the world's most important data. The estimates are Oracle owns 30 to 70% of the data in the world. That number is on the higher end if you're talking about enterprise, lower end if you're talking about all up. In order for Oracle to be a leading cloud provider, they need to move maybe 10 to 20% of their existing data over to the cloud. When you think about it that way, and you think about the fact that they've invested in a direct sales organization, and they have coverage for the Oracle 2000, is what they call their high-end enterprise, it's not so unrealistic to think that Oracle really could change the game. Okay? So, a little bit more. What I'm really excited about with this is that the AI or machine learning or whatever we want to call it is truly already built in. Oracle has done the heavy lifting. I think Oracle 1.0 cloud, it wasn't fantastic. And does everybody know how Larry built 2.0? He brought the guy who built it at AWS. Larry called up and said, I want to recruit you over, take everything you've learned when you built AWS, take all of those learnings and build it better. And I've talked to him, and it's kind of true. Now, do we have a long way to go? Was Oracle behind in the cloud? Absolutely. Larry would be the first, and he's got it on YouTube, to say we were late to the cloud. But if you look at the innovation and the fact that this covers the application, platform, and infrastructure layer, and the innovation is pretty profound throughout those, it's pretty exciting. Okay, I'm going to go through each one very quickly. It's counting down. Good. Okay. SaaS. We have ERP SaaS, we have SCM SaaS, we have human capital management, we have cloud experience, all of the things that we talked about. But what's interesting is the AI between them. You are able to detect trends in your financial and reporting using ERP cloud and then direct opportunities, campaigns, etc., to the CX cloud. So the SaaS interlinking alone is pretty interesting. That said, we recognize that not everybody is going to buy our entire suite of SaaS applications. So there is a reality set in that says they probably have Salesforce, or they might have Workday, or they might have Zendesk. And what happens with those? If you talk to IT people today, they will say that they spend 85% of their what they call free, meaning non-maintenance, et cetera, on integrations between these. Integrations between on-prem, integrations between SaaS and SaaS. Hey, I want something out of the cloud, but I want to bring it into this other cloud. How am I going to do that? And that's the complexity that partners get to help with. And that is, at our core, our strategy is to leverage the services of our partners to help us accelerate in cloud. Okay? There we are. Last one. We went through apps. We went through platform. Actually, I'm going to go through platform a little bit more. App dev. This is pretty consistent across the clouds, but your ability to use container native. We integrate with Kubernetes. We have a Kubernetes service, Docker. If you want to use Terraform for provisioning, if you want to use Chef, you can use Chef for provisioning. And the bottom line is you can use all of the modern suite and open source technologies similar to how you can in the other clouds. The integration, I really think, is a differentiator. You can integrate with your on-prem apps, you can integrate with SaaS apps, and you use this platform. This is an amazing sales opportunity. VADs have a very unique perspective on this. VADs are the only ones who can see a customer's entire portfolio of everything they're using. Right? So when we talk about what a VAD is, and we'll go through that in a minute, it's very difficult right now to build programs for VADs because it's all over the board. But some of the innovative things that we've discussed is, can we run a campaign and you pull everybody who has an Oracle database and we go and build with you a solution set on top of that, right? Very powerful in terms of thinking about the next generation of VAD services. Analytics, we talked a little bit about. We're a data company at our core, so we can do things like data ingest, reporting, analytics, validation across both the app layer all the way down to the infrastructure layer. Security. I'm going to go into depth in security because I do think it's a differentiator. And the reason for that is that where security used to be this thing that you would look at the database layer, or you would look at the infrastructure layer, and you wanted threat prevention. Where most of the threats are happening right now is the connection between those two. And so Oracle's security suite actually spans all three of these. And they're all built on a common machine learning framework. So that intel that we talked about, that really clear innovation is built into that PaaS layer. Okay, autonomous. I would say that Oracle Cloud is probably 12 to 16 months old. And I'd like everybody to keep that in mind. The new OCI is still new, and we are still learning. And we'll talk about this in the partner strategy piece. Autonomous is probably 9 to 12 months, okay? And it represents some of the most profound innovation that I personally have seen across the stack in a long time. What makes it special? It's self-driving. It automatically provisions, secures, monitors, backups. A DBA at this point, if there was any former DBAs in the room, database administrator, is probably saying, what is my job? Because this truly is taking a lot of those functions out. And we'll talk about what our reaction is from DBAs going forward. It's self-securing. It automatically applies patches. We had a customer, had a virus. We had part of them on autonomous, and part of their database is not on autonomous. Guess which ones got hacked? Right? Can't share that broadly and everything else. But it's pretty interesting to see the difference and the time. It's self-repairing, and it allows for less than 2.5 minutes of downtime. For those of you guys who are database geeks, that's really, really low when you count for planned and unplanned. What does it mean for the business user? We've been able to show that you can reduce admin costs by 80%. That doesn't mean the DBAs go away. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it does mean that the ROI on this is pretty clear-cut. It allows you to avoid data breaches, which is the harder part to quantify. How do you quantify you're not going to get hacked as easily? We can talk about what happens when you do get hacked, but that's very difficult to kind of put. But this is like the very, very interesting part, is it allows you to dynamically adjust resources, which is saving you up to 70%. I equate this to kind of when VMware came into the market. The days of virtualization, and we all remember, it kind of blew up. And we'll talk about the Microsoft relationship in a minute. How many other clouds does Microsoft directly connect with? Why? Why do they want to directly connect with us? And it's because of this. Okay. Automated key database functions. So we've built into that, and there's really two parts to it. And I think this is important because it's two different SKUs. There's ADW, which is optimized for analytics. If you want to start a new data mart in the cloud, this is what you sell. Okay, and then there's ATP, which is really good for transaction, batch. If you're a JSON person, JSON is kind of the language / schema for anything Internet of Things or high compute, the compute that's working in your Nike shoe, that kind of high compute edge computing. And so going back to that data administrator, when we started selling this, we thought, okay, are they all going to raise their hands and say, I don't want this? And the answer is they actually liked it. And the reason they liked it is they moved from doing operational baloney that they really don't like doing, and their number one fear was, how am I going to do this fast enough for the business to feel okay, all the way through to a strategic data professional who's driving rapid, data-driven answers. Okay. I am going to have to move on. I feel like a lot of this was covered in OCI, but our infrastructure has all of what I would think of as the classic. We have compute, networking, storage, DNS, and the differentiator is probably the security because it goes up and down the stack. I want to talk about the Microsoft announcement. Microsoft and Oracle announced that we are going to have a direct link so that there is very low latency between our clouds. Why did we do that? And we did that because Microsoft sees the value in the next-gen-ness of autonomous database. And so where they look at how many apps are sitting in the Azure cloud, they realize that customers are going to want to play and have that latest and greatest technology. The other thing we did is we announced our integration with AD. AD is basically the authentication protocols, or you could think of that as your persona security, and it's the number one used in the world. And so we allowed it that if you're in Azure, you can also be in Oracle Cloud very easily. And then the last thing is we wanted to make it easy for customers. So we decided to say, if a customer has a problem with either Oracle Cloud or Azure, call one number for support. And that's a pretty powerful value prop now, because they get the best, most bleeding edge database combined with other things that they may already have running in Azure. Okay, I am going to move on to partner strategy. We all heard the Cisco example. I love this example because I'm competitive and we won against AWS, and that's pretty hard to do when Cisco wasn't our customer before, right? It's different if we were an embedded customer already. Okay, one last thing about partner cloud sales plays. These are our learnings. There's really 3 motions that we see working in the market with our partners today. One is move and improve Oracle apps. So if they have JD Edwards, if they have Siebel, if they have any of those kind of apps, moving them over to OCI. The second one is third-party apps, because when they move the app, they sometimes want to modernize the database or they bring it onto OCI for cost savings. And then the third one is really around autonomous, and it's new analytics, new data marts, and ISVs, which I think you all have a unique role to play in. Okay. Partner strategy. So we have about 7 minutes left. And the mission, or the thing that I am passionate about, is, and basically my job is, how do we accelerate cloud sales and customer success through and with partners. And that is what we are entirely focused on. The first thing I talked about is that we're different. We are not a volume play. We do projects. These are deeply verticalized sales reps, right? And so we want the best partners. And I think there is a distinct role for VARs and VADs in that. The second thing is we want to focus on being below the Oracle 2000. We have an amazing amount of investment, read expensive sales reps in the Oracle 2000, and we need to be able to get market coverage. And then the third thing is the innovation, while it is across all of the cloud, autonomous is really, really, really the differentiator. Okay, so what I did, and I want to start by saying, we know we have a lot of work to do. And we know, I would say, especially in the United States, coming from EMEA, where it's much more partner-centric, this is running a lot smoother. But we are investing in recruit and activate, which is really, when we think about the VAD's role there, it's Oracle apps, recruiting Oracle apps partners. We need partners who already know the Oracle apps or SaaS suite, and that they can help move the on-prem to OCI. A lot of customers are just not going to move to SaaS. They already put a ton of customization into those on-prem versions, and so what they want to do is reduce the cost and modernize piece by piece. They want to get some of those microservices benefits of cloud. Non-direct or market coverage. A lot of the folks in this room own countries for us, and we very much appreciate that, and we'd like to talk about how we can do more of that. Domain and industry expertise. Again, this is different. We do not want a transaction kind of only partner. We want folks that bring incremental domain or industry expertise, and we want partners with a CSP mindset. And why is that? So similar to how your P&L is probably changing and you're seeing more consulting or advisory services on your P&L, our VARs or our SIs are trying to move more and more to managed services. 85% of the mid-market worldwide wants to buy managed services. They don't have the IT staff, and they don't have the quality of infrastructure, et cetera, to manage it on their own. They want partners who can manage it and they can kind of say, hands off, you help me with this area. Sales wins. We are investing a lot in kind of kits, et cetera, and we have incentives for major priority areas. So we will be coming out with incentives, you could think of that as margin, rebates, et cetera, for specific workloads in Q2. And we will also be coming out with a breadth strategy for the mid-market. We need more partner support and help there, so we're working on that for H2 implementation. On your side, the cloud centers of excellence is huge. The fact that you can bring in and showcase Oracle technologies or autonomous and you can play with it is absolutely invaluable. We're going to be announcing some stuff with a new partner program. It's more the membership stuff in the next week or so. But one component of that is making it much easier for our partners to be able to set up those proof of concepts, demos, et cetera, on Oracle Cloud. Customer success or services. Brian talked about this. It's all about services. We saw the data on it. I personally believe autonomous is so new. I'm working with our head of product management to set up a partner advisory council to feed back in. We need that insight from working with customers. We need you to tell us, okay, ADP, we got these issues, but ADW is awesome. Right? Those are the kind of feedback items we need because we're 10 months into this. And help us find the right partners. When we think about a global VAD strategy, I don't think we can have a global VAD strategy anymore. One, our sales works very differently between the regions, and that motion works very differently. But two, even if I was to ask you in the room what your business model is, I think you would find probably half of the room is not really your peer group anymore because you're doing things very differently. And so thinking through how we're going to encourage partners to build that vertical expertise and how you can help us is something that we're doing over the next 3 months. As I come into role, we're interviewing, it was 40, we're moving to 50 because we want to talk to more local VADs. My team didn't know that, so they're probably hearing it for the first time. We just finished North America, we're moving to EMEA, so some of you you'll get an email saying, hey, we'd like to interview you. And the reason is we need to understand your business model. We need to understand what customers value from you. So where we're interviewing our stakeholders internally to get some alignment, we're talking to partners, and then we're also talking to customers about the value that they see from partners. I am going to go to eco and IP. And I just want to talk for 1 minute about some of the creative things I've seen from folks in this room or elsewhere. One of the things that I got really excited about is potentially the ability to, on a marketplace, stand up, you've got your core infrastructure, automatically spin up some Oracle infrastructure, put a database, autonomous database on it, and put an ISV app on top of that, and have an offering of how ISVs can do that quickly that the VAD is providing. I think that there's a lot of space, especially in EMEA and Asia, around VADs moving their infrastructure and modernizing their databases to cloud. And so I do think that's something, if you're building IP, one of the best examples I saw was somebody who said, look, I've got an oil and gas solution. I'm going to repeat it over and over and over again. So I built the scripting to make that all automated. But guess what? I actually used the VAD to finance what they call a zero implementation for the customer. So this VAR was able to, over a 2-year horizon, show that it was going to be night and day savings just from the infrastructure piece, have the customer sign up for a 3-year MSP agreement, and have the VAD finance upfront with a small amount of interest that initial upfront of services that the VAR was providing. Those are some of the creative, very interesting, bleeding edge things that we're starting to think about and look at, because it's focused on services and customer success. The days of building partner programs around what your business model looks like is gone, because we don't have a consistent business model anymore. But building them around customers and that customer success is really where we're going to focus. Sales motion, I just want to say, EMEA and Asia has much more developed sales motions. We have a lot of work to do in North America. It's a very direct-oriented, and basically succeeding and growing quickly in the mid-market is something that we're going to work with the internal and our partners with. But focusing on ODP and building those sales motions in market with ODP is extremely important, as is sales territory planning. Our leader, Loic, has very clearly said, I want partners. I want them below the Oracle 2000. Any proposal that you bring forward that encourages that while still being complementary to ODP is something I am very interested in looking at. So we have that executive level support for this. Okay, in conclusion, huge market opportunity, huge amount of innovation. Autonomous is where it's at. It's very cool. Oracle strategy, lead with innovation. Think about what your next-gen business model looks like. How are you going to add service value to our customers, or customer success to those customers? And then the last thing is invest the time yourself to go and learn the cloud, because we're coming. We're attached to Azure. We're coming. I know we were late to the game, but this is coming, and it's real, and it's truly differentiated. So thank you very much.